Hello. India is the world's fastest growing major economy, posting over 7% GDP growth year after year. But here's the uncomfortable question: who is actually growing? Today, I want to talk about a phenomenon called the K shaped recovery and why India's economic miracle may be leaving the majority of its own people behind. What is a K shaped recovery? A K shaped recovery happens when an economy recovers from a shock, but not for everyone equally. The top of the K represents those who bounced back quickly and grew even richer. The bottom of the K represents those who fell further behind and never really recovered at all. Unlike a V shaped recovery, where everyone rebounds together, the K shows divergence, two countries inside one GDP number. In India's case, the shock was COVID 19, but the K had already started forming well before 2020. Let's look at the numbers. During the pandemic, India's top 100 billionaires added 2.5 lakh crores to their wealth. At the same time, 9 crore jobs were destroyed in the unorganized sector almost overnight. Today, 64% of India's workforce has no formal job security, no ESI, no provident fund, nothing. Look at this consumption chart. The top 20% urban salaried, formally employed, saw their consumption index rise from 100 in FY19 to 124 by FY23. The bottom 40%, rural and informal, fell from 100 to 88 during the pandemic and barely recovered to 94 by FY23. Same country, completely different trajectories. Why did this happen? Four root causes drove this divergence. First, informal economic shock. 93% of India's workforce is informal. When lockdown hit, their income evaporated. No severance, no savings buffer, no unemployment insurance. Second, the digitization dividend. Work from home, e-commerce, fintech all boomed, but only educated urban workers could participate. The digital economy essentially excluded 700 million Indians. Third, inflationary squeeze. Food inflation uh, ran at 8 to 10% during COVID. The poor spent over half their income on food, so their real purchasing power collapsed even when nominal wages partly recovered. Fourth, credit access asymmetry. Banks restructured loans for large corporates, but credit to MSMEs and small farmers dried up. Recovery capital flowed upward, not downward. Slide 5 is a historical timeline. So here, if you see from left to right, and this isn't just a COVID story. Look at the timeline. Demonetization on 2000s in 2016 devastated the cash-based informal economy. The NBFC crisis in 2019 choked off credit to small businesses just as consumption was already slowing. COVID in 2020 was the final blow. The case the case split deepened through 2022, and even today rural distress persists while urban consumption is cooling. Each shock between 2016 and 2025 hit the same group the hardest: informal workers, who had no recovery mechanism between crises. So, what are the policy solutions? So, what can India do? I've split solutions into two categories: short term and long term. First, let's talk about short term fixes. Expand Manrega to cover urban informal workers too, not just rural. Use direct benefit transfers targeted by consumption quartile, not just BPL cards. Temporarily waive GST on essentials and deploy 5 lakh collateral free MSME credit via Jandan and Mudra infrastructure. Structural reforms. A universal basic income pilot of 2000 rupees per month for the bottom 20%. Formalize the gig economy. Swiggy and Zomato workers deserve ESI and PF2. Scale PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 to reskill 5 crore informal workers for the digital economy by 2027 and a progressive 2% wealth surcharge on net wealth above 100 crore to fund redistribution. The timeline here matters. Short-term actions within 12 months, medium term by 3 years, structural changes over 5 years. None of this is easy. Let's be honest about the barriers. India's fiscal deficit is already above 5% of GDP. Large scale DBT expansion is genuinely hard to fund. 350 million workers still lack formal ID or bank accounts, breaking the last mile delivery chain. Corporate lobbying makes wealth taxes and gig formalization politically difficult. And labor is a stateless subject. The center can write policy, but 28 states have to implement it. These are real barriers, but they are political, not economic. The question is not whether India can afford to fix this. The question is whether India can afford not to. To close, India is growing, but growth alone is not inclusion. The K shape is not an accident, it is the cumulative result of policy choices about who gets credit, who gets protection, who gets a safety net. Formalization and targeted redistribution can flatten this divergence. But the cost of inaction is high. Social unrest, a demand side collapse, and hundreds of millions of people whose human capital is simply wasted. As the saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats, but only if everyone has a boat. Thank you.